Imagine coating yourself in industrial-grade adhesive before a football game, slathering the stuff all over your hands, your arms, your jersey, until it's practically dripping. Now imagine catching passes in that state, intercepting passes, watching defenders walk away from tackles with sticky residue on their face masks. That happened in the NFL, regularly, for years. And it took one historically absurd season before the league finally said, "We're banning this." That's one of 7 rules the NFL actually had to formally outlaw. Some are weird, some are dangerous, and at least one will make you question how this league survived its own first 50 years. Counting down from 7 to 1. Number 7. The tuck rule. January 2002, New England. Snow coming down. Oakland Raiders cornerback Charles Woodson strips the ball right out of Tom Brady's hand. It's a fumble. Oakland recovers. Game over. Except officials reviewed it and dusted off one of the strangest rules in NFL history, the tuck rule. It stated that if a quarterback began a throwing motion and then pulled the ball back to his body, it still counted as a pass attempt, even if he was clearly done throwing. Brady's fumble became an incomplete pass. The Patriots got the ball back, Adam Vinatieri kicked a field goal, they won in overtime, and launched the dynasty that dominated football for the next 2 decades. The tuck rule finally died in 2013 when the NFL voted to eliminate it. Should have done that sooner. Number 6. Helmets were optional. For the first 2 decades of professional football, players could decide for themselves whether to wear head protection before running at other grown men at full speed. The last player known to have played an NFL game with no helmet at all was Chicago Bears end Dick Plasman in 1940. The man played professional football bareheaded, while defenders were legally allowed to hit him in the face. The NFL didn't make helmets mandatory until 1943. Even then, they were basic leather caps. By today's standards, this information should come with a disclaimer. Number 5. Goalposts sat on the goal line. For most of NFL history, the goalposts weren't at the back of the end zone. They were right on the goal line, directly in the path of live action. Every running back punching through for a score, every receiver cutting across the back of the end zone, every tight end diving for the corner. All of it happened right next to massive steel poles. And players hit them. Regularly. Nobody called it a problem. The NFL finally moved the goalpost to the end line in 1974. Several decades overdue, but eventually they got there. Number 4. Defenders could physically destroy receivers anywhere on the field. Before 1978, being a wide receiver meant accepting a level of abuse that would get players ejected today. Defensive backs could make contact with receivers anywhere downfield, 20 yards out, 30 yards out, wherever, with no penalty. And nobody exploited this more completely than Pittsburgh Steelers cornerback Mel Blount. 6'3", built like a linebacker, he didn't cover receivers so much as make their professional lives a slow-motion nightmare from the snap onward. He was so dominant that in 1978, the NFL passed a rule specifically limiting defensive contact to within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. That rule is still called the Mel Blount Rule today. When the league names the ban after you, you know. Number 2. Throwing an incomplete pass was a punishable offense. The forward pass arrived in 1906, and the early NFL treated it with open suspicion. Until 1933, throwing an incomplete pass cost you the down and a 15-yard penalty. You also had to line up at least 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage just to be allowed to throw. And if your pass fell incomplete in the end zone, the defense took possession of the ball. Picture explaining any of this to a modern quarterback who throws 30 passes a game without a second thought. The NFL scrapped these restrictions in 1933, and the passing game was finally born. It only took 27 years. Number 1. Stickum. An industrial adhesive substance, the kind used for packaging and sealing. Completely legal in the NFL through the 1970s and early 1980s. Players discovered it helped you catch things, so they applied it. Aggressively. Nobody was more aggressive than Oakland Raiders cornerback Lester Hayes. This man coated himself, hands, forearms, uniform, in Stickum so thoroughly that players who tackled him walked off with adhesive on their own jerseys. In 1980, operating in a full layer of industrial glue, Hayes led the entire NFL with 13 interceptions in a single season. His teammate, Fred Biletnikoff, a Hall of Fame wide receiver, was equally committed to the substance. The NFL banned Stickum before the 1981 season. Hayes was reportedly devastated. When you intercept 13 passes in a year, you tend to get attached to whatever you are doing. And those are 7 rules the NFL actually had to ban, from optional helmets to steel goalposts in the middle of the field to a man playing cornerback soaked in industrial glue. Early pro football operated by a completely different set of rules about what was acceptable. Which one surprised you the most? Drop it in the comments. I want to know if you're more shocked by the Stickum era or the fact that the league had to officially tell its players to wear helmets. If you learned something today, subscribe and hit the like button. We've got a lot more NFL history coming, and trust me, it only gets weirder from here.